with Commissioner Sparks. Each candidate will have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to say thank you for allowing us to be here this evening and to be here a part of this forum. And I want to say thank you for endorsing me in my last election. Your endorsement allowed me to win 62 counties out of 67 counties in the state of Alabama. And I want to say thank you for that. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been a businessman. I've owned 2 businesses in Alabama. I know how tough it is to run a business in Alabama. I've also run a large state agency in Alabama. I know how tough that is. I know how tough times are in Alabama. But ladies and gentlemen, we must educate our children in Alabama. And that's why I'm going to tax gambling. And that's why I'm going to create an education lottery for the state of Alabama. We're going to tax gambling in Alabama, and we're going to give our kids an opportunity to have an education. What is a young man or a young woman going to do in Alabama without a high school education? Let me tell you what he's going to do. He's going to go from the schoolhouse to the courthouse to the jailhouse. And then we're going to go from spending $4,000 a year to educate him to $14,000 a year to keep him in prison. Folks, that's crazy. You know, only 7% of our students in Alabama get pre-K. Only 7%. And as I told you just a minute ago, if we raise the graduation rate of our male students in Alabama by 5%, we save $125 million. Folks, in Alabama, we are going to implement the 21st century framework so that our children can compete globally. Our children don't compete against North Alabama, South Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. Our children compete against China and India. And we must implement the 21st century framework. And I pledge to you again, no new taxes. I will tax gambling in Alabama. I will not tax the working men and women in businesses of Alabama. The next governor has got to have leadership. He's got to be able to reach across party lines. He's got to be able to work with the legislature to make things positive happen for the state of Alabama. You know, as commissioner, I've talked about vision a lot. Vision don't mean that we have the ability to look from one end of this room to the other. Vision means we have the ability to look into the future to make good decisions that makes Alabama great. You got to remember, the lady that had more vision than anybody was blind, and that was Helen Keller. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. George Washington Carver once said, "A man with no vision is a man with no hope." Ladies and gentlemen, I have that vision, and I have that hope. Thank you very much for allowing me to be with you today. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you, Commissioner. Judge Moore.
You know, I want to thank you, too, for your attendance here today and the wonderful forum that BCA has presented to us. You know, in the Mobile Press Register just 2 days ago, Mrs. Ivey was quoted as saying something which I thought was rather brilliant and insightful. She said, a lot of us politicians look good and speak well and all that, but if you're going to shoot, if you're going to be a sheriff, you better learn how to shoot. That makes sense, and I think it's a good statement. You've got to have experience because it counts. If you're going to be governor, you have to know the business of government. As Chief Justice, and I handled over 2,200 employees and a budget of over $150 million. In 2001 and 2002, we had the largest budget cuts in the history of the judicial branch. We had layoffs, we had downsizings, and we had consolidations of services. But we survived, we kept the court system running. If you're going to be governor, you have to know the law, because every governor, every executive, legislative, and judicial officer is sworn to uphold the Constitution of the United States and in the state they serve. In this case, Alabama. I know the Constitution of the United States, I know the Constitution of Alabama, and I know the law. If you're going to be governor, you have to know a little bit about the military, because the governor commands the National Guard and our state militia. I graduated from West Point. I went to Vietnam. I served my country there as a company commander. I know a lot about the military. If you're going to be a governor, you need to know a little bit about the criminal law, because you are over the law enforcement branch. The Department of Public Safety, for example. In the military, I was not only an MP officer, I was a deputy district attorney when I returned home from the service, and then I became a circuit judge trying hundreds of criminal cases and working with the ABI and the Department of Forensic Sciences and others. But if you're going to be governor, you got to do what you're going to say. And that's what you got to know. When I say I oppose taxes and that I will cut them, I mean it. When I say I'll stop annual reappraisals of property, that's the first thing I will do in office. When I say I will insist on ethics reform, I will. And when I say I will defend our constitutional rights and liberties, you can be assured that that will happen, because I do know what's happening from Washington. You know, if you're going to be governor, you have to have experience, and I think I do. And I appreciate your support, and I appreciate your vote in the upcoming election. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. Mr. Johnson.
I hope with my introductory video and the answers to some of my questions, you've gotten appreciation for some of my priorities for business and the economy in Alabama. I'd like to take my 3 minutes to share with you who I am and what I believe being governor is about. I am a compassionate conservative. I believe in low taxes and small government. Oftentimes, conservatives who believe this are framed as uncaring and uncompassionate about people. It's not that we don't believe in helping people. It's just that we don't believe that oftentimes government is the best way to do it. If you think back 100 years ago, when someone was in need, it was our families, our communities, and our churches that were our social safety net. I commit to you as governor, one of my priorities will be building partnerships with faith and community-based organizations and businesses like yours to help bridge the gap in these challenging economic times. We've seen with the Rural Action Commission, the Black Belt Action Commission, and our prison reentry program, thousands of volunteers and hundreds of organizations step up to the plate. I believe that God gives each one of us a unique set of talents and experiences and puts us in position for a reason. As a city councilor years ago, working on a homeless issue, it was about meeting a homeless man under the 280 overpass on the south side of Birmingham for a 10 o'clock meeting, and then meeting with former head of Alabama Power, Elmer Harris, at 11 o'clock meeting. At ADECA, besides taking the important calls about economic development, it was about taking a call about Miss Darlene Culpepper, a diabetic in a wheelchair from Codin who was about to be evicted from her FEMA trailer. It's about taking a call from a newly released state prison inmate who, without a job, no place to go, and worried about going back to prison, asked for help. And I was thinking to myself, if I didn't help him, there was at least a 66% chance, statistically speaking, that he was going to reoffend, create a new victim, and end up back in prison on our dime. For governor, it's about the fact that there are problems and great dreams that our citizens have that can't be realized or solved any other way. Being governor is about sharing the pain and the suffering of the weakest of our citizens, and it's about celebrating the victories of our strongest. I want to take a minute to recognize my wife, Kathy. I have been blessed to meet a soulmate who shares the same care and compassion for others. She's been a diligent advocate for children across the state, and she now heads the governor's high-speed internet project. I commit to you, or you should know, that we will be a team working for you to help get us through these challenging economic times. We'll be working with you, with the citizens of Alabama, Democrat, Republican, rich and poor, black and white, together for a better Alabama. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr.